Seen for generations, a Dyad in the Force.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dyad in the Force, episode 98. We have 2 more episodes until our 100th cookout and it's going to be an amazing one. We have Camilla, we have Daniel Silverstein, we have Xanthi of Star Wars Music Minute. We also have St. Pat, the Separatist Rebel. A whole bunch of people coming in for the cookout, including Choco himself. I'm going to introduce you as Choco himself from now on. Yeah.
Also, I think Dimitri as well.
Ah, okay. Awesome. So we have more people coming as previously thought. So we will just have a full house. Nothing's going to be structured about it. We're just going to go live from our phones. And we're just going to enjoy some food, enjoy the company, and just hang out with everyone. How's it going, Connor? And shout out to Darthman86 Kenny for the 6 months of the Dyad Squadron membership. We appreciate your support. We are joined by Obi-wan Kenobi. And if you want to introduce yourself to everyone, who you are, where we can find you on social medias. And we also have a special question included, which I'm going to look up right now.
Great, yeah. My name is Obi-sean Kenobi, or Sean. Happily to finally be on the Dyad with you two. You can find me on TikTok primarily at obi.sean_Kenobi. Same on Instagram. I also am more recently on Twitter, slightly different handle, Obi-sean altogether, and then .Kenobi with 2 eyes on the end.
Right on. And now the question, now that media has announced, media has been announced to be allegedly covering the sequel timeline, what movie would you like to see from that time period?
Man, if the proposed Lando series doesn't cover it, I'd like to see like a movie with Lando and Janna, and kind of just like discover where she's from and like maybe cover that period of time. But also seeing if Rey and Finn continue the Jedi Order in a new way, that'd be really cool too.
Yeah, that's cool. We were also slated to be joined by Lauren from the Nerd Council. If you've watched Choco on the Nerd Council, you might have seen Lauren on there as well. So we'll try to get her in as soon as she gets in. Oh, there she is. Let me insert Lauren into the picture so that everyone can see her. And Lauren, if you can introduce yourself, let everyone know where they can find you on social media. And
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Sorry for the video quality. I'm just on my laptop computer.
You're fine.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I originally met Choco on Nerd Council. I'm not an influencer, which is what makes this so funny. But you can follow me at Lauren Blair on Instagram. My first name Lauren is spelled with 2 A's and 2 E's. You could also possibly find me under the same username on Twitter, but my Twitter is not as fun and exciting. It's me mainly just like reposting other people's stuff. So
right on.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I had to rush here from a family dinner, and my subway decided to skip my stop. So
that's okay.
Yeah,
completely understand. And I think I would say you're right on time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank God.
That's perfect.
I forget
No worries.
What was I watching where the person was like, oh no, it was Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
You're right. I thought I was. You're right on time. I thought I was late.
That's what I mean.
I thought I was late. You're right on time. Oh, wait, no, you're right on time. I thought I was late. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Welcome to Obi.sean and Lauren to Dyad in the Forest. It doesn't matter if you're not an influencer. We're here to spark conversation and talk about things that we love in Star Wars. I know. Have you seen any of the sequel movies? Because I know when we met, you had not.
No, I had seen already The Force Awakens numerous times, and I had seen The Last Jedi once. The Rise of Skywalker is the only sequel movie that I haven't seen, though I do know what happens in it. I do know the sequence of events and all that kind of stuff. I've just never watched the movie all the way through. But even I had watched both of those movies before I had years before I had met you, Element.
Oh, okay. So I guess we can ask you the question as well. Now that there are announcements for media, presumably happening in that time period, is there any kind of movie that you'd like to see from that time period?
Not that I can think of, because there's not really anything from that time period that I'm super attached to. That I look at and I'm like, oh yes, I want more of this. But I actually didn't know about that news. So I mean, I'm happy for all the sequel fans who are gonna get to have more, who are going to have more content from that era, because I know recently most of the content has been very close to the original trilogy and prequel trilogy eras. So I'm excited for those fans to get to have something new to watch. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a relatively untapped time period. Obviously, there's the obvious answers, right? People want a Rey and Finn story. People want a Poe, returning characters. But again, since it's an untapped time period, we could very well get new movies with new characters, which is what I prefer. Although I would love to see Rey and Finn, I prefer we get new characters. That the movies are about them, although like Rey and Finn can be in the background and like, you know, they exist in the time period. But we get a lot of people saying Lauren like supremacy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Give us a short jump in time and have us spend time with a couple of brand new Jedi that are being trained underneath, you know, Finn and Rey, and just tell some, you know, innocuous adventures of this new class of Jedi, something like that. There's like you said, it's untapped, and so there's lots of stuff you can do. Even if you weren't a big fan of those films, it's wide open slate, and you can have new characters. But the galaxy has been forever shaped by the characters that you love, and you can see how their actions echo forward through time.
Absolutely.
100%.
So let's get into the announcements really quickly. There's only one major announcement that we need to take care of, and that is announcing the winner of our Dyad giveaway. And that giveaway is for a very, very nice framed Rey and Kylo art piece by Matsumoto Art. And we are going to do this right now. All right, so let me actually get the the video URL first. I probably should have had that prepared, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We're just gonna pick a random comment from this YouTube video, this giveaway video. And we'll see who wins. It's basically that. We're going to pick it right now. Ready, set, drum roll, please. Or Max Rabussy roll.
Right now.
This is where the fun begins. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Oh, it is Harrison Slagle. Dude, this looks so good is the comment that was picked. My favorite moment is definitely after the throne room fight when he offers his hand. I sometimes think the movie should have ended there. It would have been a nice ending.
Super cliffhanger.
Yeah. Congratulations, Harrison Slagle, for winning this. I'll be reaching out to you via this YouTube tag on YouTube. So please, if you're watching this later, if you're in the chat now, please be prepared to receive a message from me, and we'll reach out to you. And if we cannot get a hold of you within the next week, we will pick another winner.
We'll move on to the next one. Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.
So Harrison Slagle is the winner of that Rey and Kylo art piece. Well done. Congratulations. Any other announcements from anyone else? Choco, Obi-Sean, Lauren? You want to announce a new movie or something?
Don't have any films on the horizon. I do have a new series that I'm going to want to be starting soon, and hopefully going to drop a teaser for, but Kenobi's Cantina, Caf Bar, and Cocktails. I'll just be shooting some videos with me making cocktails and maybe slowly turn it into a podcast. But I was going to use that Negroni Spagliato sound bit and start it off with that and then go from there. But
Okay.
Nice.
so look forward to that on my TikTok. Yeah.
Are you a mixologist?
I've had some background in mixology, and then I've been working in coffee for a really long time too. So be a mix of like making coffee drinks versus cocktails as well.
Right on.
That's cool.
And we know how Obi-Wan loves his cocktails. So
Yes.
Are we going to get a Dyad themed drink created? That would be cool.
Oh, there better be.
So, yeah.
I don't see why not. Yeah.
Right on. And you have complete 100% creative license to make up whatever you want for the Dyad cocktail. That'd be cool.
Fantastic.
After the Last Jedi and Rings of Power, my type has solidified as a pathetic evil man that decides to propose at the absolute worst time.
Yeah.
Shout out to B-Dazzler Brooke, our good friend, who also runs farfarawayfactory.com. I have a wonderful Satil Shan shirt and it's the only one in existence that Brooke did, and it's absolutely fabulous. If you want anything done, I got stickers, jewelry, hoodies, jackets, custom art. That's where you go. farfarawayfactory.com. Harith with the let's go Dagovir emoji. Hello, Marianne. Welcome to the show. Any announcements, Choco, before we just get the ball rolling?
No, let's jump into it.
Okay, so first of all, the next segment is usually a fandom crawl. However, we had a drop this week, and it's called Tales of the Jedi. So let's talk about Tales of the Jedi, shall we? Just like a brief overview of all 6 episodes. Just let me know like your thoughts and your impressions from the show, and what was your favorite episode, and we'll go from there. And we can start with Lauren.
Okay. My favorite episode was probably either the first or the last episode.
Ooh.
Just because I thought that it did such a beautiful job at showing the ultimate origin of Ahsoka, and then I also thought that the ending of Tales of the Jedi was very it was very nice to see her kind of meet up with Bail. Actually, no, I think the first episode was my favorite. Well, now that I thought about it.
It's actually nice that you say ultimate origin, because I feel like the first episode is the ultimate origin of Ahsoka, and the 6th episode is the ultimate origin of Ahsoka, of the rebellion.
Yes. When I was saying the ultimate origin of Ahsoka, I was just talking about the first episode, and how her people, yes, and how her people kind of come to realize that she has this power within her. And I also just thought that the realizations of the different traditions within her people was just so beautiful. And that sort of like tight-knit community that they all had. It honestly just made it even more heartbreaking, the fact that the only family that she really knows she ends up losing with the Jedi. And also there's an arc in the Clone Wars, the Zygerian slaver arc, where a big emotional pull for the characters in terms of going to save the people who were kidnapped by slavers. The big pull is that Ahsoka sees herself in them because they are Togruta as well. And so I felt like having kind of seeing her origins within a Togruta village and community just made that a lot more solid for me, which I loved.
Absolutely. I mean, do you think when Plo Koon showed up, the tiger was like, oh,
I thought Plo Koon was going to show up at the end. Like, I thought it was going to, like, I thought we were going to see him, but I was very wrong.
I just wonder if we're ever going to see that tiger again. Do you think in the Ahsoka show she's going to go back to Shilly? It's been a long time.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I thought, okay, this also could have been me just like completely just miss seeing the shots in the trailer for Tales of the Jedi, but I truly thought that the final episode where all the homes are burning, I thought that was going to be back on her home planet. So I thought that she, like, after she loses the Jedi, I thought that she was going to suddenly have like fond memories of her home planet, go back there, and when she goes back there, an Inquisitor like sets a trap for her or something. That's what I thought was going to happen. But again, I was wrong. I was very wrong.
It's okay. I mean, yeah, it was fun seeing Ahsoka and her mother, who was what's the actress's name?
Janina Gavankar.
Yeah. So we have
Iden Versio.
So we have Iden Versio and Ahsoka's mom, and then Snoke and prisoner in Andor. That's fine. I thought what was interesting about the first episode was the amount of culture that we got as well, like the what they do with their hands and what they say. Like, I wanna learn more about the Togrutan cultures, and it's a very interesting episode. Choco has some problems with the episode, although it's
no, not problems with the episode. I mean, Ahsoka looking like a Cabbage Patch doll just kind of freaked me out a little bit.
That's what I was referring to, yeah.
And it definitely left me wanting more. Like you said, you guys wanted to see Plo Koon. I felt like, if we could have gotten something that was a full story, right? Because this is them finding out that Ahsoka was Force sensitive. I would have loved the story because, there's someone else comes to get Ahsoka who's actually not a Jedi and is pretending to, and then she hides that. And then Plo Koon eventually gets. I wish we could have seen. This felt like the first act of a 3-act story, and so it left me wanting more.
For me, it was the last episode that left me wanting more. It just felt like it ended so suddenly. We just didn't get it. The fight happened, and then, she met up with Bail, and that was it. I felt like we should have gotten a little bit more, maybe her healing, or even if she wasn't using those particular crystals to heal and turn into her sabers, some sort of like montage of that would have been cool.
That was definitely the downside of this not being a full-length series and just it being a series of shorts. I definitely think that a lot of the stories were kind of, except for the first episode, because the first episode is like very self-contained, and I feel like the story took up as much time as it should have. But I think all the other episodes felt like, oh, there could have been a little bit more here, or I feel like we're just like scratching the surface here. There could be a little bit more exploration. Like, I specifically felt that with the Count Dooku episodes, where it felt like his first two episodes were like like if you think about the story arcs, like the typical like story arcs that they teach in like middle school and English classes, where you start off in even before like the inciting incident, like getting to the inciting incident. I feel like that's what the first two episodes were, and then I felt like the last episode was like right at the end of right at the climax, and before the falling action. And I really wish that we got the chance to see more of the rising action that led up to the climax, because I felt like there was more that could have been explored in terms of what brought Count Dooku to that point in his final episode.
Yeah, I mean, it is the drawback to such a short amount of time for each narrative to take place. I think what they should have done for the last episode is actually recreate the scene from Ahsoka, the novel. And by the way, just full disclosure, I think Resolve is a completely different event. And so I think that if they were to provide something with nuance and context, I think they should have recreated the Ahsoka novel. Not like one-to-one, but like recreated that scene so that people have a mild understanding of what's going on for those that read the book. And it would be a little bit more consequential, other than, village burns down, quick little encounter with the Inquisitor, and then off we go. Short episodes. We, at the panel in Celebration, he described this as chicken scratch, or he jotted this down in his notebook while he was on plane rides. So we'll see if we get more of that, or see if we get longer episodes. But still interesting nonetheless, especially with the Dooku episodes. Obi-Sean, what was your favorite episode?
Even though like the Dooku forward episodes were my favorite overall, I think I enjoyed the Ahsoka's training episode the most, and just how much it tied into the last few episodes of the Clone Wars, the newer seasons that we got, up to the moment where Rex is pretending to take her into custody, and how Anakin basically, even maybe unknowingly, prepared her for Order 66, with the clones just firing over and over and over again, and just all the cool little cameos we got in the training room during that scene. Little Caleb Doom and Depa Billaba. Mullet Obi-Wan.
Depa Billaba. No, it was a great episode. It definitely kind of like brings a tear to your eye when you think that Anakin prepared her for Order 66. Like, come on. That's why
unknowingly.
Yeah, that scene when just the bay doors open
yeah.
at the very end of that episode just killed me.
Yeah, and Jesse, man.
Commander.
I think I feel like that episode kind of represents, to me at least, the biggest part of the failing of the Jedi, because this stuff that they do, the training, the exercises, and all that stuff, for a long time they were mostly ceremonial, but like we saw there, they were training for the fights that they had done in the past. They weren't training for all possibilities. They weren't training for the future. And that's a big part of the Plagueis novel, where they talk about how the Sith have evolved and have changed, and that's why they were ultimately able to win. The Jedi were prepared to fight the previous war that happened 1,000 years ago. Anakin prepared her for anything, and that's why Ahsoka was able to make it out.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more than an organizational issue. I think because of the fact that Anakin was preparing her for that, and he came from that organization, speaks volumes as to like the individualistic responsibility of each Jedi, true. Right? Because we have Mace Windu, we have Yoda, we have Plo Koon, some of the best duelists and possibly the best people to wield a lightsaber, who are prepared for this stuff, right? And then we have like the rest of the Jedi who are ceremoniously training with these forms, just out of tradition. They don't really take it seriously, and then we have Aayla Secura, who gets just blasted from behind and is helpless. So it's interesting to think about, each individual Jedi taking this training and really kind of making it their own to prepare for this stuff, right? Like Mace Windu even created Vapad, to address the shortcomings of another form. So it's interesting. It's interesting to say the least. Shout out to Cal4, Dyad Squadron member for 16 months. Feeling the love. Thank you so much, good sir. I have a present for you, although not probably in the next couple of weeks. But
I need to sign up for that, y'all.
You don't need to. It's not necessary, but we do appreciate the support. It does help Choco a lot in his time of need. But by all means, it's not expected of anyone. And everything and all memberships and super chats are all just icings on the cake. Ducks and Download says that mask. So many thoughts and questions. So from Resolve.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, why did it deflate?
Exactly.
And whose face was under there?
Let's see. I imagine it was Kiadi Mundi. just for convenience.
Just because I wanted to.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out how you put all that head underneath that mask.
You know what? Until a canon source says that it was somebody else, we can just headcanon that it was Kiadi Mundi. We can live in that reality until someone says otherwise.
I would rather have Kiadi Mundi have as many deaths as Shakti did.
What if
instead
it's actually
of Shakti?
They were like, listen, we know that we settled on a canon death for real years ago, but we're taking it back again. We just want to continue the tradition of just killing her over and over and over again.
It's just the same scene in Revenge of the Sith, but just on different planets over and over again. It's on a loop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it's like Dante's Inferno. She keeps going through like the levels of hell, and then she's like, every single time she has to keep dying.
Every time Shakti dies, it's just Doctor Strange comes floating in. Dormammu.
Yeah.
Shakti,
that's
I've come
the
to bargain.
crossover we need.
I've come to bargain.
Shakti and Doctor Strange, they're besties, because that's the only way to explain how many times she's died.
Yeah. It's interesting
sorry, I was about to say, it's like in the What If episodes where like her death is a finite point in time. Like Doctor Strange, like with Christine, is like, no, I will not let it happen. And it just keeps happening.
It's an absolute funny. But it's interesting that the mask deflates, right? We have canon and legends precedents for Sith inhabiting masks and possessing those who wear it. We have Darth Momin's mask. We have Kiza possessed by Darth.
Not Darth, but the mask of Pancham Exard.
Panchard.
Exum
Panchard. Exum Panchard. But there was a Sith Lord behind that mask as well. The one from the Immortals, Immortality story.
Yes, that is true.
Is that Sanguis?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have, just Sith masks are iconic in that fashion. So I'm wondering if that Inquisitor had the mask or they got it from the Jedi archives, because there was a couple masks in the Jedi archives. If they got it from there and subsequently were possessed by that Sith spirit, or if they just...
They also had a very similar vibe to Obi-Wan and Maul's final fight in
Yeah.
Rebels.
Yeah.
Just the quickness of it.
That's so true. That's a great little
Also, I kind of love how the music in that scene changed. It had this kind of Western vibe, It was cool.
Dave Cowboy Hat Filoni changed it into a Western vibe? Who would have thought?
Hat.
Exactly.
So that is how we get Starkiller. He kills Shakti in Ahsoka season 3 and Mando season 6. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I love how this also isn't the first time we've seen Ahsoka just turn off a lightsaber with the Force.
Yeah, this is true. You know what I'm thinking? And shout out to Sawyer. That could have been Nihilus. Because listen, if you are a wound in the Force and have no physical flesh and crude matter, you would disappear underneath the mask, right?
Forget your Kiadi Mundi theory. This is now the headcanon until official canon. It is Nihilus. Element, you have to agree with me now.
I agree with you. No, it's exactly how powerful Nihilus is.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's the bestest Sith Lord there ever was. Bestest of all time.
Exactly. And then we keep on saying, like, when it comes to, like, explaining Nihilus's power, we often say that against a competent fighter, they would not last. And Ahsoka is that competent fighter who just grabs a saber and ends them. So yes.
So if anything, if it is confirmed as Nihilus, they'll be proving Sawyer right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bro, she straight grabbed a saber and said, "Mine." Oh yeah. Shout out to Yoda from Empire Strikes Back. Mine.
I will say that ending to that episode, although I know it's supposed to lead into her involvement in Rebels, just because this was released at the same time as Andor airing, it really makes me want to see Ahsoka show up just for like a brief cameo in Andor, just as one of the Fulcrum agents that are working in the network. But again, I wouldn't want to see that until after Bail was possibly introduced into the show in his workings with Mon Mothma. So it's not something that I see happening immediately, but at the same time, it just got me hyped for Rebel Ahsoka. And since we're currently in the era of Andor, it just makes me want more.
Absolutely. I think Andor is taking place in what's the time period for Andor? Is that
5 BBY?
5 BBY? Okay.
5
yeah.
BBY. And so it works because she doesn't show up physically on Lothal, I don't think, until 4 BBY, and then she doesn't disappear until like 3 BBY.
Correct.
So like she can show up, so she has like some ability to show up, or maybe like cameo in like a hologram in one of their Fulcrum correspondence or something. Like I don't need like a full episode where Ahsoka is like the main focus in an Andor episode where she and Andor are like working together or something. Just her being a quick like hologram, or her just like voice coming through.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even her voice would be cool, even if it's like a bit scrambled or something.
It would be, yeah, honestly, I would be down just to hear her voice communicating as a Fulcrum agent in the network. That alone would be enough for me in terms of an appearance by her in Andor, because it works, and also it would just make my heart so warm because I believe Andor also becomes a Fulcrum agent at some point, or he takes on the moniker as like one of the Fulcrums. So it would be a further connecting tissue to bring Ahsoka in for just like a quick little hi and bye in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, or an allusion to a Fulcrum agent named Ashla or something like that.
Yes.
Would also be really cool.
I see it. I also want like a cameo from Hera as well.
Yeah. I was hoping for maybe like Roken in the past being brought up again, but I can see them also doing that in Bad Batch season 2.
They're most definitely.
I know a lot of people are praising Andor for not relying on like too many cameos or Easter eggs compared to what we've gotten in the past, because in the past it's definitely been like a lot more. And I agree. It's definitely shown that it can hold its own without doing fan service, or at least not over the top fan service. That doesn't stop me from hoping that I'll get to see like, other characters show up, just because I just want more characters that I love to interact with each other, just because I love them so much. And so I see a lot of the conversation of the oversaturation of Ahsoka and that kind of stuff, but it's just because I want to see her interact with
There's
Cassian.
nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of the conversation around like overuse of cameos and stuff can get a little bit too far. It's like, but all of these people exist in the world, right? So, and they exist within this time period, and then it makes narrative sense. Ahsoka becomes Fulcrum from 19 to 18 BBY, so she would be doing all of this stuff. And at what point do we stop saying that's a cameo and say it actually makes narrative sense that they're there? Like if we see Ahsoka just walking off and like, she's going off to do something and she just got her orders. It makes sense.
I've been taking all the subtle cameos like Yularen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like
it makes sense for him to be there. He's ISB.
Yeah.
We also talked about last week the possibility of Callus just in the background as well with them chops and just kind of like taking orders.
Bring on the chop.
Yeah, see, I don't want cameos to take over Andor, but I just want to. I'm just looking forward to the point that we get to where Cassian is so entrenched in the rebellion that have him crossing paths with these other people would make, as you said, narrative sense. Because that would be very exciting to me, just to see him even more entrenched into the world of all the characters that we know and love.
Yeah, I think it's more likely to happen in season 2 than it is in this season, right? Because he's still like on the fringes.
Yeah,
and he still has to deal with Saw.
I could be wrong, but I believe season 1 will take place completely in 5 BBY, and then season 2 takes place 4 through 0 BBY. I could be wrong, but I think season 2 is going to be a lot more condensed. So especially if we're looking for specifically with cameos being quick, like hi and byes instead of like taking over the narrative. Yeah, you're right. It would most likely be a season 2 thing.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get a prison break because he can't be in there for 6 years.
we saw it in the trailer.
That's the jump, right? From 4 to 0. It's just him in prison.
Listen, they're going to dig a tunnel out of it, and it's going to be a Sice Noodles poster. It's going to be a Sice Noodles poster on the wall.
Shawshank in Star Wars.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, the floating prison. We're going to dig a hole into the water, and then the water will be solid because that's water, and we'll just keep digging.
You just dig and then swim. Hold your breath. Bring a sweater. It'll be cold.
Sweater. The sweater will get wet.
We'll have the third glass tube underwater breaking in Star Wars.
Before we get any deeper into Andor, because that is our next segment, let's talk about something. Let's talk about Yaddle really quickly.
I love Yaddle.
That was cool.
I did love Yaddle and her ranking.
Crazy to find out that Yaddle has a regular speech pattern and Yoda is just still Yoda.
Oh my God, you're right. I didn't even stop to think about that. I was too. You're so right about that. I didn't even stop to think about that because I was so distracted by the fact that like I knew it was Bryce Dallas Howard, but it sounded very different from her normal speaking voice. So I was like, oh my gosh, she's doing such an amazing job. And then I didn't even stop to think about the voice pattern.
I actually just heard Bryce Dallas Howard doing the voice. Like not a
It kind of sounds like Maz Kanata to me.
A little bit, yeah. And I
that.
appreciated that because her ranking jumped up in my list because of that.
Yeah.
Because of it.
And we had Yoda Yaddle speak like that in the High Republic, but you never know what Dave is going to keep.
So now the
I'm
question becomes.
Happy they kept
So
it.
now the question becomes, where did Yoda's speaking pattern came from?
He had a stroke.
I mean, that is a theory.
Chewing on that stick.
That can be a theory, considering the fact that he's like double the age of Yaddle. So it
That's
could just
true.
be a thing of just like in that species as you get older, like how in real life with most humans, as you get older, you're most likely to develop something like dementia. That it could be their version of that.
It could be. Yaddle doesn't have a Geimer stick like Yoda does. But the original explanation from George was that where Yoda comes from, the planet, that is their speech pattern in their own dialect. And when it's translated to basic, that's what you get. Now, I don't know if that is canon or not, but what George says, it's kind of like wishy-washy in terms of what we're.
Yeah, it's always a good hint, but George also says a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it also just becomes so complicated, considering that much like it is in the real world, just because a certain species is from one planet doesn't necessarily mean, or originates from that planet doesn't necessarily mean that like somebody born of that species is from that planet. Like they could have like migrated at some point. So then it just becomes a question of like, what were the differences between where Yaddle and Yoda came from? It's just made so many more questions, which I feel like would most likely be answered in The Mandalorian, because I feel like Grogu in many ways would be able to answer those questions in further understanding who he is as a person, his childhood development, and whether or not we gain any more answers in terms of the history of his people and culture and species.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from this episode, though, is finding out that Yaddle had stepped down from the council and actually agreed with Dooku on a lot of points, to the point where he said, Qui-Gon did not need to die.
Yeah.
That was sad.
Shout out to General Grievous 19. Thank you for joining us. Marianne also says that supposedly his master, that's the way his master spoke. And that's something that can be possible as well. Cal says, or it could be Yoda is always roasted off of his walking stick, which is perfectly valid, perfectly satisfying headcanon.
Or you know what, he's like Maester, he's like the Maester Pycelle from Game of Thrones, where it's all just an act, so then people don't suspect him.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. It could be the case. He just
He's
the door
playing the
closes
long
behind him.
game.
He's like, oh, these bitches think I talk like that now. Okay. Well, might as well.
No, he's like, oh, now I can finally straighten my back and I don't have to hunch over anymore.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll ever get to a point in Mandalorian where there's a time jump enough to where Grogu starts speaking basic, or if he's just always going to be kind of communicating through gestures and babbling and stuff.
Oh.
Even if it's not in The Mandalorian, I have a feeling, considering that The Mandalorian takes place so early in the time period between the original and sequel trilogy, there's no way that they're not going to go further into that time with like other series and other movies, just to further flesh out that time period. So I wouldn't be surprised that even if they don't get to it in The Mandalorian, if they get to it in a future project.
Yeah. Bedazzler says, me and Nidra came up with a theory last night that he got jumbled up in the world between worlds, and since time exists all at once there, He now talks in whatever order he wants. His speech pattern exists outside of time. I think I understand that theory now, which would be awesome. Harith says, I think it's just a thing he does. It's meant to be a thing for teaching, so people have to hang on every word. Yeah, I mean, I know about that theory as well, where, he speaks that way so that people will listen. Speaks in riddles so that people will need to have the answers themselves. I think essentially what it boils down to, for me personally, is that he's just eccentric like that. Some people talk differently. There's like no regional dialectic reason for it. He just one day thought, this will be cool. I'll talk like this.
And we do know that he has a very silly side, as we saw in Empire Strikes Back. So
yeah,
he has a very silly side. He likes to punk people.
But okay, so I want to know why did they bring back Yaddle only to do that? I understand we don't see her.
Did we have a canon death for her before? I know it was like between episode 1 and episode 2.
No.
We had a legend
that's probably the biggest reason.
I think she could have possibly just been like a Yoda stand-in, because having that sort of confrontation of Count Dooku finally being found out to be in the dark side, like that's probably something that they would have found to be more emotionally hard-hitting with Yoda, since Yoda was his master. But the Jedi can't know that he's on the dark side until later in episode 2, and B, considering the time period that they're having this revelation come forward to anybody takes place during the end of the Phantom Menace, when all the major players are off planet and on Naboo. So I think that they were just trying to find a major player that could somewhat be related back to Dooku's, innocence.
I smell profit.
Geordie Jedi super chatted a $2 ramen drop. Chat.
Thanks for that. Just chat. Go on, Lauren. I'm sorry.
No, that was pretty much it. That was the perfect way to end it.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting that with the whole thing about Dooku and how it was kind of expanded upon in these episodes for sure. Lots of people.
Yeah, I like that they used the same. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I like that they used the same meeting place that we see at the end of Attack of the Clones in the same episode. I think some people noticed it in the trailer with the shot of Yaddle with those doors. Yeah, it was cool imagery.
That was so, man, that was like Jesus moment, like, and then she just like kind of keeled over after that. I thought like we were gonna get some more epic stuff from Yaddle, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it was kind of lackluster. Him just like walking over and just basically poking her with the lightsaber at the end there.
Yeah. Harris says, I mean, I love how they did the opposite join me scene with Yaddle. Like, she was recognizing the same flaws that Dooku came to realize over the last 20 years. I think that's the most important thing to understand about Dooku, right? Is that he had very valid concerns, and he had very valid and, quite frankly, correct, views of the Jedi Council and the corruption with working with the Senate. But he ultimately chose the wrong method with which to fix it.
That was actually the main issue that I held with his 3 episodes, because throughout the first 2 episodes I'm kind of rooting for him and I agree with him, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, you're going at it, and it feels like we completely skipped the parts where these lines of thinking ended up going off wrong, because I don't believe
I'll have to be right back. But keep going.
Because I don't believe in the Clone Wars we're meant to see him fighting for any kind of political freedom or to help the people that the Separatists represent. By that point, it seems like he truly is corrupt, and he's truly like, he understands the plot that Palpatine has for galaxy domination, and he believes that he will be by his side throughout the entire thing, which is completely different from what he's like in the first 2 episodes. So that was my issue with his arc, because I felt like they skipped a whole bunch there that I felt needed to be explored in order to get to that final episode, which again makes me hope that we see some sort of series or movie that kind of explores that, especially getting into his betrayal of Sifo Dyas. Like, we don't even see that. We just see the aftermath of him deleting Camino. We don't and I have found with a lot of casual viewers of Star Wars, and even some like very big fans of Star Wars, a lot of what is explained in episode 2 that takes place pre-episode 1 gets lost in translation a lot. I found that sometimes the explanatory dialogue gets kind of convoluted for some people when it comes to timeline and trying to figure out events and like what really happened and what's a lie and that kind of stuff. So I was really hoping that we could have kind of laid that out more, to further like solidify what was the true events, so then we could know what truths were being twisted by Count Dooku to either make himself feel better or to appeal to the people that he was speaking to.
Yeah, I think a lot of that certainly could have been included. There is a lot of Dooku in the novels, and Kenny says it in the chat, Master and Apprentice, Dooku Jedi Lost. There's a lot of nuance there and context that could easily have been inserted in some of these episodes where it makes it clear where the lines are drawn. So I agree with you there. I think at the end of the day, like, the corruption of the dark side is something that is apparent in this arc, right? He has some very, very just and moral motivations, but the way like it goes from 0 to 100, joining Sith Lord and kind of just completely abandoning the cause, like respectfully, is kind of like almost an allegory for what the dark side is, right? You have these misgivings about the Senate, the corruption of the Jedi Council. Now, who is whispering into your ear to exacerbate those thoughts? And if Sidious is whispering into your ear, you're like, okay, Jedi Council is corrupt. Let's go to war.
I just wish that we had seen that sort of transition from his train of thought, from going from selflessness to selfishness.
Yeah.
Because the first 2 episodes, his line of thinking in considering the issues that are in front of him are very selfless, and then it feels like we completely skip the parts where he becomes self-centered in these ideas and in these issues facing the galaxy, and so I just felt like, and so because of that, it just felt very disjointed to me, and it felt like that we were missing a lot, because obviously
I smell profit.
Geordie Jedi super chatted a $2 ramen drop. So good I had to chat twice.
Thanks, Connor.
Oh wait, that's Connor.
Yes.
That makes sense now.
I'm sorry if that like completely. I'll scold Connor.
My main thesis here was that we've seen before how it's normally the best of intentions or the start of best of intentions end up leading to the dark side. Like we know, surface level, what Anakin, like if we're gonna do a comparison to another person's fall to the dark side, on the surface, what Anakin wants to achieve is, admirable, and people would identify with that and think like, okay, yeah, you have a point. But the thing is that if you go further into his motivations behind those desires, and you see that they're a lot more self-centered, and they're a lot more they're a lot more selfish than what people would initially think on the surface level. That's where the fall to the dark side happens. And so I feel like we never really got that insight into Dooku in those episodes, so I felt like it was missing something.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Choco, I'd like to get you into the conversation somehow.
Yeah, sorry about that. Some crazy stuff going on at the moment, but no, I fully. I mean, I agree with that. Assessment. My big worry was that we were going to have, because there's a lot. I see a lot of like misguided Jedi hate on the app, and I thought this was just going to fuel that fire, because obviously they did get off base, but and Dooku's felt righteous indignation at some of these things that he was seeing, and that was true, and that was good, and good things could have come from it. But he ended up turning around and doing that exact thing that he was condemning others for. And so, yeah, it would have been nice to expand on that switch, but maybe we can get more. This gives makes me excited and want to get more Dooku content.
Me too.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
There's a great parallel to be had there, with Sidious.
What I loved about these Dooku episodes too is that, like, I think it's one of the first times we're seeing episode 1 timeline content, like, in animation, or at least in like Clone Wars style animation.
Yeah, this is true. But like to see that Sidious is manipulating both Anakin and Dooku with the same promises of saving them from something that he is perpetrating. He is perpetrating the corruption in the Senate. He is providing the most threat to Padme. Yet he promises Dooku he's going to fix the corruption, and he promises Anakin he's going to save Padme. And that is the temptation of the dark side. It's like, oh, I could save your wife. We could fix this the corruption together. And then, lo and behold, he's the man behind the curtain. Yeah. But
I kind of love that Anakin never quite put that together, because he's like, oh yeah, by the way, the whole separatist leadership is over here, go get them, and then we can have peace. And you're like, so you knew where they were this whole time?
But we will have more in-depth roundtables for each episode of the Tales of the Jedi. I believe Obi.sean has signed up for a couple of those as well. Lauren, if you look into the Discord server and go into Lounge Tales, that channel, I have a bunch of episodes lined out. If you want to sign up for any of those roundtables, we will dive deep into those episodes specifically. But now, if you don't have any final thoughts on Tales of the Jedi, we'd love to move on to Andor. Episode 8. Does anybody have final thoughts on Tales of Jedi before we move on?
I have a funny comment.
Go for it.
After watching Tales of the Jedi, I was like, I don't care that this idea was probably brought about after I said it. I'm gonna take credit for that opening sequence of Ahsoka at Padme's funeral, because I straight up, second episode of Nerd Council, one of the questions asked was like, what do you want to see in Star Wars? And I talked about how I really wanted to see Ahsoka's point of view of Padme's death.
Yeah, you manifested
and I said that back. I manifested that in like April of 2021. So I will take credit from here on out. Nobody can tell me otherwise.
Credit given. For
Thank
what
you.
it's worth.
Thank you.
For whatever authority I have in that regard.
More than me. So that's something.
Not necessarily. You can give yourself credit. You have more authority of giving yourself credit than I have of giving you credit. But Kenny says, okay, on break. Yes, Dooku is an underrated character. Everyone thought he was a clear-cut character, but that cut runs deep with great lore for him. Kenny, we are going to have a Dyad Lounge episode about Dooku, and we're going to have this conversation. But let's move on to Andor, episode 8.
Cassie and Andor.
Yeah.
Jedi and Andor.
I love that.
It is quite the meme. So from the previous episode, Andor is in prison, and we find out that he is on Belsalvis at a facility called Narkina, and it's an interesting facility.
There was an interesting person there.
Yeah. We got to see Melshi from Rogue One. We got to see Snoke before he got mangled and strand casted.
we got free feet pics.
Yes.
Lots.
We're going there. But what were some of the things that stood out to you in this episode? We'll start with Obi-Sean.
Prison scenes. The direct, at least imagery that we saw in George Lucas's THX was really cool. Just like the stark white of the prison, and just like how the whole thing set up, like the electrified floors, was a really cool concept to see. And then I'm really curious as to what they're actually building in those workrooms, whether it's like at parts or parts of TIE fighters or parts of the Death Star. It'd be really interesting to figure out where those are going.
It's interesting. It now that I look back or think back at what it looked like, it kind of reminds me of power shield generators. Like if I look back at Hoth and how those shield generators looked, is there some similarity there, or am I just like grasping at?
I don't
straws?
know. All I know is that when I was watching it, the shape and the structure definitely looked extremely familiar. I just could never place it. I was like, I know that, but I don't remember where.
Yeah. It's some of it does remind me of Viper droids, but they don't stack like that, or maybe they're just like being stacked for manufacturing purposes. Choco, do you have any legends knowledge that are they making the eye? Just kidding.
No, unfortunately, the conjecture here is as good as anything.
Overall review of this episode: Andy Serkis, Sackguard, Whitaker. Okay. What I want to talk about is actually like the ISB stuff. As in particular, Dedra and Cyril. What do you guys think about that dynamic? And do you think Dedra is the one that made him lose the tunnel collar?
The what?
The tunnel collar that he tailored. That was like
Oh.
a Mario Brothers pipe.
Definitely, it was definitely her.
I need him to get rid of that tie. It was like a seatbelt that just comes out of his chest. Like I don't even understand what it's supposed to do. But I do headcanon that it's a solid loop, and you can like pull it down, and it'll just keep cycling more. It's like a piece of tape.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping that they would give us both of them in a scene together, and this episode delivered for sure. It's gonna be interesting to see like who uses who more for, what their end game is.
Yeah.
I found it so funny in that scene where they're talking. I can't remember the official title that he had in his original job, but like the gist of what he was saying in like this tone of voice, he was sort of just like, I was a good officer, like this sort of like whiny sort of like saying that he was good at his job. I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so funny.
Like in previous weeks, I posited when everyone was like, you know what, they were match made in heaven, you know, Dedra and Cyril. But I was like, yeah, but that's like one way, right? Like Dedra is Cyril's dream girl, and Cyril is Dedra's nightmare.
Yeah, no.
And
No.
It played out because he was like all about that, you know, all about the protocol, right? And Dedra's like, get out of my face.
You know, he was like, I want everyone to know that I've been a good boy and I should be rewarded.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy everything that every scene that Dedra is in, even though like I actively root against the Empire. Like seeing her like succeed is quite the tumultuous thought to have as someone who's against the Empire.
It was great to see her fight the patriarchy and win, and then it was also sad to see her use its power to oppress other people. And you're like, oh.
When that happened, I actually had this moment of just like, yes, she did. And then all of a sudden I had to take a minute to remember where I was and what it was that she was doing. And I was just like, I have to reevaluate everything for a second.
That's what
she girl boss too close to the sun.
Cyril actually gives off a little bit of the Krennic energy. Like when
true.
He's whining about Tarkin taking the Death Star away from him, and then he goes and runs and cries to Vader.
Yeah.
So, which makes me think, like, hopefully we'll see Krennic either in this season or the next.
The thing is, Krennic has the wit for that kind of energy, and Cyril is just like surface level Krennic, right? He's so ambitious, he's so by the book, but he doesn't have the wit to like make it, you know. As Bedazzler says, we support women's wrongs and rights and wrongs in this house, which is true. Like week in and week out, every time I see the ISB and Dedra, it's always like, yeah, go get them, but I hope you die. But some interesting things also happening with the prison. It appears that there is some kind of movement, right? There's something that's happening. People are doing sign language and communicating with each other from across the way, and we have to wonder if there is a larger rebellion that exists, or at least a splinter cell that exists within this prison system. What do you guys think?
I mean, it would make sense considering when Andor first showed up to the table, that entire group was suddenly like, you know, what was the situation with this thing that we were hearing rumors about? Is it the rebellion? Is the rebellion happening? Like there was this sort of awareness, but because they're so cut off from the rest of the galaxy and just have no way of getting recent news in, they just couldn't be sure, and so that would make sense, that it's kind of their hope of somehow ending up doing their part in some way.
Yeah, there's definitely
I thought it was crazy how.
Go for it.
I thought it was crazy how obvious they were being with those hand signals. I was so sure that guy was going to get caught. Like, just doing right out in the open.
It's like one of those things where you're like this. Nothing here. Nothing happening here.
It's interesting because there's not a lot of guard presence in this prison, as they said at the very beginning, and so I think that's probably allows them to have a bit more freedom when it comes to that sort of thing. Considering you have to play the floor is lava, late at night, they're probably not too worried about Oh, hand signs.
The most intense game of the floor is lava rolled.
Yes. And I think that's an interesting facility. Like, you know, you're gonna notice that we don't have any weapons, or, you know, are minimal at best when it comes to our loadout, and that's because you guys are eternally in danger at all times. And I'm wondering though, if there's a possibility that within that, like, that workbench, work table, manufacturing room, there's a way that someone could fashion shoes out of the tungstoid.
That's all that they're missing for this great escape plan. Shoes.
Hey,
Once
it's
we
like
get that, we'll be
shoes.
unstoppable.
The only weakness, shoes.
Yeah. Also, fun fact: tungstoid steel is a holdout from Fate of the Jedi, which was Legends, and has now been canonized by this episode. As a former factory worker myself, the level of detail to how factories work, both in physical and mental forms. There's a part of that sentence missing, but I can see where you're going.
There's probably going to be a part 2.
Yes, I believe so. But it is interesting. Like the old guy at their table. Massive Brooks vibes from Shawshank Redemption. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but he's not gonna last, and it's probably going to be an inciting event for the prison. Because everybody loves the old guy. You know, the whole table helps him because he can't, like, get a pin in.
Yeah.
I need one of those number of days since incident signs in that room.
It would be constantly 0, right? Because the slowest table always gets fried.
Oh,
And that's one of the crazy things about it is they set up a system in which they're able to make the prisoners view each other as the enemy, you know? Because if you don't do good, then we all get in trouble. So it's that guy's fault, not the people doing it to us, you know. And the reward system is we'll pump some flavor into your gruel. It's
Now with taste.
yeah. It's I don't know. It's great. Not to mention how many of them said that their sentences just doubled, just doubled. You know. How messed up and horrible that is as a system, but it's not unlike the prison system today, where it's glorified slavery. You know, it is. People get arrested. They're getting arrested on these trumped up charges, and Cassian didn't do anything, but now he's cheap labor to help build likely the Death Star, which will make it easier to oppress more people. It's crazy.
It is. It's definitely a fascinating prison system and a fascinating facility. And I'm wondering, because the prison card or the sentence card in the previous episode said 25 years. I'm wondering if, like, whatever the judge stamps, it's just whatever they want. At that point, it's like, doesn't really matter.
I mean, considering he said like force sensitivity or something like that, and that's not true.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because you're talking about Cassian's sentence?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, because the woman who was doing the sentencing, she was said, oh, it's too bad that this is only happening to you now. You know, just earlier the sentence was only 6 months, pretty much making it seem like there was a recent new decree for whatever specific crime that they were charging him with was suddenly increased to 25 years. So I'm not entirely sure if it's just like whatever they want, just based off of that line where it seems like there is a chain of command in terms of who is deciding what crimes get what kind of punishment. Although, you know, obviously with that sort of very strict, narrow-minded view of crime and punishment, they obviously leave no room for nuance in terms of, you know, asking why or any of those kinds of things, because, you know, sometimes for certain crimes, I know, like, if you can like plead why, sometimes that'll like adjust what the punishment is, depending on the situation. Obviously not super universal, but it happens. So that's why I don't really see it as her just doing like whatever she wanted. I definitely think she was given like a spreadsheet being like, okay, you see this crime, go over like a couple boxes, that is what you put as the sentence. Like, I think it's just a very by the numbers spreadsheet that she has.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so you know that some of the changes happened because of Cassian Andor, right after what they pulled with their heists. That's when the board decree kind of came into place, and a lot of stuff got stricter, and then they could just do surveillance on whoever. It's part of the power that we always hear the ISB has is because of that inciting incident. I think that's really fascinating.
And I'm pretty sure it's that incident that actually causes the inmates who are already in there for their sentences to double, because that was the entire thing of just like them, you know, they became curious as to why it was doubling, and I guess whatever kind of intel they could overhear from guards in their vicinity, they were able to somehow gain the knowledge of some sort of attack, and thus like relate it back to the rebels. So so yeah, that's definitely that's definitely the cause of a lot of this harsher sentencing.
Rams asks, do you think Andor will escape himself, or will someone break him out?
I think it's going to be a group effort. I think,
yeah,
like you were saying, there's a lot of communication going on inside this prison, so I think it's a much larger cell than we're giving it credit for.
I mean, they're essentially in the raft from Marvel. Like, someone's got to break them out, because where are they going? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't. Yeah, they're on a little island. What were we gonna say, Lauren?
I was just gonna say that I think it's gonna turn into a mob mentality from the inside, because it seems like there's definitely a small group of them that seem organized and seem like they're planning something together, but for the most part, it seems like for the most of the population within the prison, it seems like that group of people goes unnoticed. So I feel like that small group of people are going to start something, and then the rest of the prison is going to like notice that and see that as an opportunity, and then it's going to turn into just like mob chaos to like get out as quickly as you can with as many people as you can.
Yeah,
it'd be really interesting to see if like Andy Serkis's foreman either like hinders this when it comes to it, or if he turns out being kind of like a double agent on the inside and is actually organizing this uprising.
could be. There could be a Fulcrum agent there.
I don't think it'll be Andy Serkis's character though.
No, but it'd be a fun
Definitely
one.
Well, yes, no, of course it would be. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I don't think it would be.
Brooke says in the chat, the same Uber that picked up Crosshair from Camino is coming to get them. I don't appreciate you bringing me back to that sad day, that sad episode. I'm still holding out for Crosshair to come back to us. But then we get a meeting between Luthen and Saw, and we find out that and we're running out of time here, so we'll try to wrap things up a little bit in a fast manner, for lack of a better word. But the meeting between Luthen and Saw, there's a lot of different groups with the same cause. different methodologies, creating all kinds of fragmentation in organization and just like different ideologies. I think Luthen wants Saw to meet someone, and the guy's like, he's stupid, he's slow. What do you guys think of this meeting with Saw and Luthen?
I could be wrong in remembering, or when I first heard it, but didn't Saw describe whoever it was that Luthen was talking about as a separatist?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
He's starting to sound like a separatist.
And so considering Saw's experience on his home planet, I feel like that also adds to the whole thing of him probably seeing he's probably seeing not only the Empire as an enemy, but he's also probably seeing the former separatists who have now been taken over by the Empire as also still a part of the enemy. I think it's just a situation of him again being paranoid and thinking that everything around them, spies, enemies, people trying to kill me.
Yeah.
So I thought that was especially interesting, acknowledging who these people working in the rebellion were for during the Clone Wars, because it definitely shows a shift in the galaxy in terms of people realizing that there is a greater threat than fighting each other, that there's a greater power to be fighting against. And so I thought that was interesting, because that's probably going to become a greater part in all of this, especially since I think Andor's parents were technically separatists, right?
Yes.
So it seems that way. That's something that we had heard in the past, but now we don't know the true meaning of it because some of the things were kind of jumbled up with the show. But it's highly possible that they were on the run from the Republic. So yeah, it's highly possible that Marva and Clem, that was their side.
What about you, Obi-Sean?
Yeah, I'm not sure who he wants him to meet. I'd be interested to know like what happens to Saw in those 5 years where he needs the respirator and the suit and everything. The additional injuries he incurs between then and the events of Rogue One.
This is true. I think the most interesting thing is the kind of like spectrum of rebellion we're seeing. On one side, we had Mon Mothma and Luthen at odds with each other about how they're going to go about enacting this rebellion, and Mon Mothma is all about the subversion and espionage and stuff like that, and Saw is not Saw, and Luthen is all about getting things done, and whatever is necessary to get it done he will do. And then on the more extreme side is Saw, who is just doing things because he wants to. Everyone has the same cause, but there's so many different ways of doing it. Saw doesn't have any reservations. He sees an opportunity.
I feel like Saw is chaotic neutral.
Oh, I think he's chaotic evil. I'm just kidding.
Really?
I think he's a mix of like chaotic evil good, if that's even the thing. Because
that's why I said chaotic neutral, because I'm like, I can't place him in either good or bad, so I just have to go neutral.
Yeah, I mean, like, the cause is righteous. The cause is just pure. Everyone's cause is pure. But Saw will see an opportunity and will go for it, despite there being civilians or innocent people that's in the line of fire. Whereas Luthen will see an opportunity and go for it. But I feel like he's the type of person that would be a little bit cautious around certain factors like that. Mon Mothma is not, and so for me, Saw that's where the evil comes in with Saw, But he is good, so it's kind of just like he wants to stop the Empire. It's like chaotic good, but also I want to bomb a place that has civilians in it, evil.
I mean, 1 year before this would be the events of Rebel Rising, where Saw and his group mowed down a whole party full of civilians. You know, like he can go to a pretty dark place. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, Steela definitely kept him from acting out the worst side of himself.
Yeah.
So after he lost her, he was full blown extremist.
And I do think they're showing these extremes because Andor's sister is part of Saw's group, and there's going to be a moral dilemma between Andor and his sister. Yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think he's going to have to, choose. Is it Mon Mothma's rebellion? Is it Luthen's rebellion? Or is it Saw's rebellion? But I wish we had more time to talk about this stuff, guys, but we are running out of time. I do want to give you guys an opportunity to answer Rams's question. Is there any character you guys are wanting to see in Andor? And Lauren, you could probably go a little bit further than Ahsoka. Because you said that earlier.
Yeah. I mean, Bail, Leia, there are tons of, it could be literally anybody in the higher, more like organizational level of the rebellion we could see, because Cassian has to go through them in order to get his orders and to know where to go and like what to do and that kind of stuff, or at least has to communicate with them. So there are just so many. There are so many characters. Is there? I'm not sure if there's any other ones. I would say Pooja, but I want to play Pooja, so like I can't really say that. Because if they put Pooja in there, I would not be around to do that.
We'll be part of your fan casting campaign.
Thank you. My friend and I, we're putting together a show, so hopefully. When's
it coming out?
It's not actually like in production or anything. They're a film student, I'm a drama student, so we've just and we both bonded over our love for Padme, so like we've talked about a Star Wars show that we would love to put together that would include Pooja, and we've talked about hopefully someday, if we ever get the ability or authority to do so, to pitch it to Lucasfilm.
Right on. Obi-Sean, any character you want to see in Andor?
There's definitely a few up there that I would love to see. Like I was saying earlier, Roken would be really cool to see, and more of the path. Other members of the rebellion that we saw in the original trilogy, like Dodonna, would be cool. Yeah, Fulcrum, Hera.
Yeah.
My picks.
Well, with that said, we're just about out of time. I will answer your question, Rams, really quickly. The Starlight Beacon was part of Chancellor Lena So's big wonders of the world, or her big accomplishments for the Republic. So, moving forward, if there's a Chancellor that doesn't share that vision, they're not going to spend the credits to build something like Starlight Beacon. But really quickly, as we wrap up, I want to give a quick shout out to friends of the channel and other creators: Fulcrum Transmissions, at Fulcrum Pod on TikTok and Twitter, Podwans live on Thursdays 5:30, Char J on Twitter, Harris Productions on Twitter, and Podwans Podcast on TikTok, House of Holocrons, Jackson Download on YouTube, Castle Run Relay, at Castle Run Relay Pod on TikTok and Instagram, Beings of the Galaxy, our good friend Camilla. It's a narrative podcast just about everyday beings in the galaxy at Beings Podcast. Calzone, who is streaming right after this podcast ends. Go check him out on twitch.tv/cal4. And Sith Faced. We just had our first Dyad Lounge episode with Nada Kyber talking about Yoda, whether he's a good or a bad leader. go check that out. Dyad Lounge is set to be a great series of videos of people disagreeing with each other and just having great conversations. Our next one is going to be about the Ahsoka trial, and that's going to feature 2 lawyers on opposing sides. And then we have More of Us podcast on Twitter at More of Us Pod, and of course, the farfarawayfactory.com, our good friend Brooke Dazzler. And thank you to our Dyad Squadron members, that which we could not make this possible every week. Thank you for your love and support. We highly appreciate it. But I believe that is the end. On to the next one.
For light and for life.
We're all the Republic.
And may the Force
May
be
the
with
Force
you.
be with you.